Hello, AP students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have notes for Chapter 14, Social Psychology. We're going to talk about prejudice and discrimination. So, prejudice is basically negative attitudes, beliefs, and feelings towards an individual based solely on his or her membership of a particular group. Prejudice may be expressed as negative emotions such as dislike or fear, negative attributions or stereotypes that justify the attitude and or attempt to avoid, control, dominate, or eliminate those in the target group. Discrimination is a negative action. This is a behavior taken against an individual as a result of his or her group membership. Racial profiling is an example of discrimination, and it's often considered a discriminatory procedure because it singles out people based solely on their racial features. So, causes of prejudice. Some prejudice we acquire at an early age. Some are defensive reactions when we feel threatened, and some are a result of conformity to social customs. So there are 5 causes of prejudice. Dissimilarity in social distance is our first one that we're going to talk about. And dissimilarity can breed disdain and prejudice. In groups and social distance are some examples of this. And our in groups are groups that we kind of identify with. Social distance is the perceived distance or similarity between oneself and another person, and an out group are those outside of our group, people that we do not identify with. Economic competition is another cause, and this occurs in highly competitive situations where one group wins economic benefits or jobs at the other group's expense and can easily fan the flames of prejudice. Scapegoating. A Hebrew priest of the Old Testament performed a ritual that symbolically transferred the sins of the people to a goat, hence this is our scapegoat. The animal then was driven into the desert to carry its burden of guilt away from the community, and the term scapegoat has been applied in modern times to innocent people or groups who receive the blame when others feel threatened. So scapegoating, this is the blaming of an innocent person or a group for one's troubles. This may explain the number of lynchings in the southern part of the United States from the 1880s through the 1930s. Scapegoating is most effective when the object of scorn is readily identifiable by their skin color or some distinctive physical feature, or propaganda that can create such a difference in the minds of the dominant group. Another example of prejudice is conformity to social norms. The tendency to maintain conditions the way that they are, even though those conditions involve unfair assumptions, prejudice, and customs. So secretaries tend to be female, and executives at one point in time tended to be male, and it may be difficult for a woman to break into the executive ranks. When women note that most computer workers are male, they are likely to avoid taking computer science courses or going into such careers, which then become men only. Discrimination itself can cause prejudice. Media stereotypes. Stereotyped images used to depict groups of people in film, in print, and on television reinforce prejudicial social norms, such as images as far from harmless, because people have learned many of their prejudices from the stereotypes that they saw on TV, in the books, movies, and magazines. Media distortions still occur, and of course they are more subtle. Primetime television features as many as 3 times as many male as female characters. Most are shown in professional or managerial positions. Even 2/3 of U.S. workforce is employed in blue-collar service jobs. The proportion of non-whites to older persons who appear on TV is also smaller than the general population. In recent light, we have the resurfacing of the TV show Roseanne. And in a way, it does break some of the stereotypes. Typically, a lot of our TV shows are kind of geared more towards liberals. And when we look at the Connor family, they happen to be a little more conservative. A lot of times our television shows focus on people who are very professional. The Connors, for the most part, are incredibly blue collar. So, defying the norms, perhaps. Combating prejudice. Educators believe that prejudice could be overcome through a gradual pattern or process of information, campaigns, and education. These informational approaches are among the least effective tools in combating prejudice. Prejudiced people usually avoid information that conflicts with their views of the world, and so they never watch or listen to those messages. Erasing the strong emotions and motivational foundations associated with long-standing prejudice can be difficult. Legislation, new role models, and equal status contracts are always good ways to combat prejudice. New role models, such as LeBron James or Tiger Woods or Condoleezza Rice, may also serve as role models in prestigious jobs and leadership positions where few of their race or gender may have appeared before. Equal status contracts. The evidence, however, of integrated public housing where the economic threat was lowered the property values is not an issue. Suggests that when people are placed together under conditions of equal status, where neither wields power over the other, the chances of developing and understanding increases. Legislation, a study in the late 1940s compared the attitudes of white tenants towards black tenants in public housing projects. In one project, black and white applicants were basically assigned to different housing or different buildings. That is, the project was for the most part racially segregated. But a second project mixed or integrated the two racial groups by assigning them to the same buildings. Only in those racially integrated projects did prejudicial attitudes decrease. And the United States has adopted laws abolishing racial discrimination, and the consequences were sometimes violent, but prejudice and discrimination have gradually diminished, and evidence for the shift comes from polls in the 1940s when about fewer than 30% of white Americans favored desegregation. Today, the percentage has climbed to well over 90%. Thank you very much.